Hi, everybody. It's Joe Cioffi here on this Sunday night, May 20th, 2018. Next weekend's the Memorial Day holiday weekend. I hope everybody had a great weekend. I did. I went fishing today. I caught 5 smallmouth bass, and a couple of them were pretty decent size. So I had a good day. Just a little wiped out. We had some sunshine today, so I got some sun, a little bit on the tan side. And we had a good time. So I hope you guys had a great time too. Chris Alley, it's all doing good. Alcina Al-Wazali, good to see you. Stephen Franco, James NASCAR, Blorox Cleach, Anthony Orr. The gang is gathering together for the Sunday night weathercast. I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. Before we look at what's going on at the moment, I wanted to focus attention on where we're going in the pattern, especially as we get toward the end of this week and this weekend. And I'm going to start front and center with the current satellite picture, because it's going to illustrate what we have set up with regards to what's happening across the United States. You know, we've been talking about this tropical connection that has existed for a good chunk of this week, and it's still there. If you look out in the Atlantic, you have the big upper ridge that is out there, and that is now starting to flatten out a little bit, and that's good news for our area, because this has been responsible, being in that position off the East Coast, the Bermuda High, if you like to call it that, has been creating an alleyway for moisture to move northward, and that high is starting to flatten a little bit. We've got this troughing that's in the Gulf of Mexico. That was also feeding up the moisture, and at least tonight, you're seeing with the brighter white cloud tops, you're seeing a large breakout of some thunderstorms across parts of the Ohio and Tennessee Valley, and also seeing some thunderstorms down along the Texas coast. But we are going to see that upper ridge flatten just a little bit, and we'll bring up the upper air. And what's happening is the northern part of the jet stream is finally flexing a little bit, and I'm jumping to Wednesday now. The flow is going to become more northwesterly across the Northeast and the Mid-Atlantic states as a trough swings on through. So that brings the jet further south. So our airflow starts to come out of Canada and moves into the Mid-Atlantic states. So this is drier air. The Atlantic ridge is still there, but it is decidedly weaker, and you still have, by the way, a weak troughing in the Gulf of Mexico. So you're still getting some tropical moisture that's trying to move up, but because of those northwesterly winds in the upper atmosphere, that tropical moisture is getting suppressed to some degree, at least through midweek. But that is going to change, and it's going to change as we move toward the Memorial Day holiday weekend. Now, when it comes to these holiday weekends, the thing about the Memorial Day holiday weekend is that it's the one holiday weekend that really kind of still sits squarely in the season of spring. And with that, you get all the problems that you get with springtime weather. We are seeing, at least as we jump to Sunday's jet stream pattern, that upper trough lifts out east of Newfoundland, and that allows a little bit of ridging here in the east. You've got another slice of energy that is dropping down in toward Lake Winnipeg. You can see it there as I just drew it, and the 2 arrows in between showing you where the flow is. But the one thing that continues is the trough persisting in the Gulf of Mexico, and this is going to start shooting up moisture northward again. And you'll notice that those westerly winds now start to pull up. They no longer go down into Virginia, the southern edge of the westerlies, just about to central New Jersey and offshore. So now this is Saturday, and at least from the standpoint of Saturday, we will be in fairly good shape. In fact, I think Saturday will probably be a pretty warm day. But then as we jump ahead, this is what happens as we move into Sunday, that next energy arm in Canada is going to try to swing a cold front into the east. This is for Sunday morning, and you can see that there are some showers and some thunderstorms ahead of it. But now you've got all this tropical moisture that is coming up from the Caribbean and Cuba over Florida and into the southeast, and there is going to be a bit of a wave that's going to try to develop here on the front. You can see it there, and the question is does that wave pick up this moisture and then shoot it up the East Coast as we move into Sunday night and into Monday? And that is something that we are going to have to watch very, very closely going forward. It is a, it's going to be a problem if that moisture does shoot up. We're talking about rain for maybe later Sunday or Sunday night into Memorial Day itself. So that's where really our focus of attention is going to be. The other thing I want to bring up, and that is the fact that, we are, that trough persisting there in the Gulf of Mexico is going to, the longer it stays there, the longer we have lower than normal pressures from the Gulf southward into the Northwest Caribbean, we have to at least allow for the possibility that a low may try and spin up, and maybe or maybe not it becomes tropical. The one thing I will say, because it has been brought to my attention, and also even if it wasn't brought to my attention, I can see it on the models and on Facebook posts. Look, you're going to have models for the next 5 months, June, July, or the next 5 months at least, spinning up all sorts of renegade tropical systems. And they're going to be doing it with regularity. We've already been seeing that over the last couple of weeks, and that nothing has come of it. And this is going to continue. So to go off the deep end, every time a model run comes out and starts spinning up a tropical system is really a waste of energy, okay? So just kind of tell yourself mentally, I got to back away from this before I drive myself nuts, because you will drive yourself crazy if you start worrying about every run, because every run's going to do something different. And remember, climatology is against tropical storm or hurricane development this time of year. They are rare events. Yes, we are going to be going into the month of June. June is considered inside the tropical storm season, but we don't see June storms a lot. You can go a number of years without seeing a June tropical system. Usually, you get one every 2 or 3 years. And when it happens, it tends to happen during the latter part of the month and not at the beginning. So the way we handle these things is to just kind of watch it from day to day, and that I think is the smart way to approach it. Other than sending me messages about Category 4 hurricanes that show up because of what model runs are doing, you're really kind of, as I said, you're just wasting, you're wasting energy getting worried about that sort of stuff. So let's take a look at where we're going here. Of course, we had a cold front move through here in the east. So you can see the extent of what the GFS is showing with respect to what's falling tonight, which we'll get to in a little bit. But now we, at least for me, for my area, eastern Pennsylvania into southern New England, a nice little high builds in for Monday, so we get to squeeze out a whole nice day. But notice we've got moisture coming back up already, up into the Ohio Valley and into the lower lakes, and it continues, by the way, through the southeast and Florida. Florida's been getting a lot of rain over the last number of days and likely to see some more going forward. Tuesday, another one of these warm front, cold front situations in the east with a bit of an onshore flow, so there'll probably be some showers. But then we do have a cold front that comes through here Tuesday night or even on Wednesday. It kind of hangs around. It takes a little while for it to move out of the way. So Wednesday may wind up being a bit of a transition day. And then finally on Thursday, we get another high that comes on in, and there we start to see that tropical moisture getting suppressed to the south. The upper ridge flattening off the east coast suppresses that tropical ridge. So Later Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, I think, look good. And we're going to start probably warming up as we go into Saturday as the high moves off the mid-Atlantic coast, and you start to see that high off the Atlantic coast begin to strengthen again. But it's going to take a while for the moisture to come back. Now, as we move into Sunday, here's the problem. You start to see all this moisture running up, and actually this is by Saturday night. The GFS is really rushing it in here, so we'll see about that, whether that's correct or not. And it'll, it does come up in waves, but then you see the bulk of this rainy weather comes up later Sunday night into Monday as that wave develops on the front. And it takes a while for that to get out of the way. The upper ridge kind of stays persistent. So if this is correct, we may have to wait till after Memorial Day to see improvement. And even here, the next high goes to the north. So the onshore flow gets set up again. This is not really a good pattern that would favor nice weather for long stretches of time. So if we do, when we do wind up getting some decent weather here Thursday, Friday into Saturday, I strongly recommend that you enjoy it. And meanwhile, in the longer range, again, remember, you're going to start to see we've been seeing model spin systems up. The GFS really didn't do it today. The European actually did do something a bit different. I think I'm going to show it tonight and show you what it did on its surface map. The European spins up a low in the Caribbean and then makes an appearance here as we move. This is 72 hours or 96. By the end of the week, it does have some sort of low pressure there sitting in the central Gulf, and it heads it toward the Louisiana coast next weekend and then just kind of sits it there. Now, I don't know how real this is, folks. We have a lot of questions regarding this. As I've already explained, but the European does have this system, a system for next weekend spinning up. The GFS does not. I'm going to pull up the new GFS, and even here that it doesn't really do very much with it. Doesn't show what the European shows. The Canadian model was a little bit more like the European in that it tried to spin up something in the midterm. Let me just roll that out. You can see it. It comes out there, right there. You can see that's at the end of this week into the central Gulf of Mexico. I think this is a little far-fetched. The Canadian is one of the models that, as we know, is very guilty of spinning up renegade tropical systems in the long term. I'm going to jump to the upper air, and I'll widen it out. And I'm also going to take, we'll take the Europeans' view tonight of this. And let's just go back. All the models show that trough. And you can see the troughing starting from going back now to Friday. And, there's your upper high. It starts to flatten out as we go through this week. You get that flow from the northwest comes down. So there's your dry shot of air for late, probably more looks like more along Wednesday could be a transition day, but certainly Thursday, Friday, into Saturday look good. And there's your trough in the Gulf of Mexico at the end of the week again, and it's from there that the European kind of goes a little bonkers with it. Again, highly suspect at this point. The trough is there, the weakness is there. We have to pay attention to it. Whether it winds up becoming something is we'll deal with that when we start moving our way through this coming week. Let's take a look. By the way, there's nothing mentioned on as far as the National Hurricane Center. They don't start their tropical weather outlooks for the Atlantic till June 1st unless there's something going on, and there's nothing being mentioned there, nor is there anything being mentioned in the Pacific. We've got a little bit of severe weather going on tonight. And these are the radar. The radar views are as of 9 o'clock Eastern time. So if you're watching this video later, please check your local National Weather Service page at weather.gov and start from there. And then you can find your local geography and click on it to see what exactly is happening on the radars. But as of the time of this live stream, You can see where the Storm Prediction Center has this area of marginal risk that snakes up from South Texas on up into Arkansas and eastern Oklahoma. We do have some strong thunderstorms that look like they're peaking now in East Texas, and 2 severe thunderstorm watches, actually one now. The one that was up for Tennessee and northern Mississippi has been taken down. We still have a small area of a severe thunderstorm watch in parts of Missouri and northwest. Looks like it's touching northwestern Arkansas, northeastern Oklahoma, with some activity there. Also seeing some shower and thunderstorm activity right now in the west, scattered up throughout the central and northern Rockies, and even into parts of the Pacific Northwest. And of course, over Florida, we've been seeing some on and off showers and thunderstorms for days, and that continues this evening. As far as the severe weather risk goes for Monday, we'll bring up the Storm Prediction Center's map here, and you can see that for Monday, there's a slight risk of severe weather covering much of central Indiana into southwestern Ohio, and then a larger area of marginal risk that extends down into western Tennessee and also extends northeastward from southeast Ohio up into central Ohio, westernmost West Virginia, and the northern part of Kentucky. Also a marginal risk of severe weather in West Texas and into New Mexico. And there's your general area of thunderstorms that continues up the Rockies, both the central and northern Rockies, and then back up into parts of the interior of the Pacific Northwest. So, all in all, folks, the pattern remains very active in terms of changes. We're seeing weather systems and troughs moving along. That Gulf trough is going to be a big player late this week and certainly this coming weekend. So you've got holiday weekend ideas for plans. You probably would be wise to keep a close watch on the weather. Maybe that northern trough will be stronger and squash everything south, or on the other hand, the fact that we've seen this tropical pattern over the last week, it might flex its muscle as strongly as it just did, in which case it might lead to a wetter solution as we move into the holiday weekend. So let me come back to you guys on the board. Got a nice, as I said, you got a nice little crowd here tonight, upper 30s and low 40s in your area in Michigan tonight for Gary Rivard. Good for you. A nice little cool shot of air there. Matthew Warman, again, addressing the question of a tropical storm coming up the East Coast sometime in June. You can't really answer that question. As I said, the way to approach things is in terms of weather. If you're new, you'll find that I have a very sort of calm, methodical approach to things, and I don't go off the deep end just because models in the longer range are showing one outrageous thing or another. ZEUK, what do I mean when the ridge is flattening? All right, let me bring it back up, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So here we have, I'll bring up the paint box, and bring me back up. Okay, so what do I mean with respect to when when I say that the ridge is flattening? If this is the pattern, this is the upper air pattern for Wednesday when the ridge has already flattened out. What we have right now is the upper high kind of oriented like this. All right, this is how the jet stream, the winds around the edge of the upper high that is sitting along the East Coast. That's how it looks like at the moment. Okay, by flattening, I mean that the line where I have the arrow here, instead of running northeast, southwest, northeast from North Carolina on up into off the East Coast, and this of course feeds up tropical moisture up into the Northeast. Instead, and I'll draw it in a different color, the ridge by the end of the week is actually down in here, okay? And your upper high is probably weakly sitting somewhere north of the Dominican Republic. The reason that it's flattening is because you have this deep trough here in the eastern part of the United States, right here. And as a result, now your upper air winds are coming out of the northwest down into Virginia and North Carolina and into the northeast. So the high gets flattened out. So any tropical moisture that's down here, when the high was strong, it was coming up the east coast. Now that the high is weaker, and I'll draw that in orange, the moisture field is going over Florida, but then it's getting deflected out to the northeast, well to the south. So that's what I mean when I say that it's flattening. It looks, that's a term to describe, what it looks like by flattening. That it just kind of gets squashes down further to the south. So I hope that that clears it up for you with regards to what's going on. You get these ridges, they strengthen, they build, they flatten out, they weaken, they get destroyed, they shoot up. All of these things have impacts, just as troughs. They move along. Sometimes they deepen and they start dropping southward, or they may also could remain flat, just kind of a little wave or a little ripple that moves along and has a minimal impact on weather and as far as weather changes are concerned. Matthew Warman, we had the 80-degree temperatures today along the East Coast. As far as consistency in terms of every single day, well, I don't think you're going to see that. Although, Thursday and Friday will probably be in the 70s and probably maybe well up into the 70s. This time of year, just having the sun out is going to reflexively cause temperatures to bounce higher through the 70s and up toward the 80-degree mark. But in terms of consistently getting 80-degree temperatures every single day, I don't really see that anytime soon. Anthony Orr, I will talk about Justify in 1 second. And yes, I did have the superfecta yesterday. I caught 5 fish. I had the superfecta yesterday. They paid $370 some odd dollars, and now you have. I caught 5 fish today. So who's better than me? Franklin Taylor had in Arkansas having their first 90-degree day and some maintenance rainfall, no significant moisture in 2 weeks. I think you're going to be getting some over this coming week anyway. Which model is the most consistent? I will answer that by saying the model that's the most consistent is the one that works when it's working. And, right now, GFS has been pretty good. The European's been so-so. Both of them have had their problems. The short-range models, the NAM has not been doing too well with thunderstorms, at least up my way. But the HRRR in the short range has done very, very well. So we're going to be seeing, we're going to be paying close attention to that. Let's see. Sean K. I was freshwater fishing. I was catching smallmouth bass today, and that was certainly a lot of fun, especially since the fish seem to be paying attention. I do have a picture of it. Let me just bring up. By the way, I had to do there was a software upgrade on the program that I use to. Okay. Let's try this. All right, now I think I'll be able to show it to you. All right, 1 second. You ready? All right, this is one of the bigger fish I caught today, and that's my smallmouth bass. It was a nice, gave me a nice fight. By the way, I catch and release. I don't keep the fish I catch. I catch them. I very carefully remove the hook and then send them along their merry way. So I do not, I really don't eat them or cook them, although I do like seafood. I'm not one for bringing them home and cleaning them up. I guess because that's just too much work. I enjoy the relaxation that fishing brings. Now, Anthony Orr, as far as Justify is concerned, that track yesterday looked especially heavy because of all the rain, the 7 inches of rain that they had down in Maryland near Pimlico over the last 4 or 5 days. So I think the conditions of the track were really, really heavy, and it probably took its toll on Justify a bit as the closers were coming at the end. So if the Preakness were 1.25 miles as opposed to 1 3/16 miles, he probably would have gotten caught and passed. But that's not what the race is. The race wasn't 1.25 miles; it's 1 3/16 miles, and he did win. So, I'm thinking that he was able to pull it together. He certainly has every bit of a good chance to take the Belmont, but the Belmont is tricky. It's 1.5 miles. Is he going to get another slop fest to run in? Are they going to have a fast track this time around if the weather improves by the time we get to Belmont Day, which is in 3 weeks? That remains to be seen. So we'll see. But, he certainly looks like he has the goods as far as trying to get to the tropical storm. Raymond, 4 tornadoes hit New York State, made it the worst outbreak in the month of May to hit New York since May of 1998. Now, you're referring to the outbreak from last week, the severe thunderstorms that we had. Yeah, they were incredible last Tuesday. Not just 4 tornadoes, but an EF2 and 2 EF1s. Though we just don't see that often in southeastern New York. And that was a really, really crazy outbreak that we had. So hopefully we won't see it happen again, because once again it took its toll. Not just from the inconvenience of it all. I mean, for God's sake, 2 lives were lost. Unfortunately, in those storms. The infrastructure, in terms of the electrical infrastructure, especially in the Hudson Valley, which has already been compromised several times, especially by the nor'easters back in March, took another hit, and a lot of people were still without power going into this weekend. But this is going to be problematic come hurricane season time if we, God forbid, have something come up the East Coast the way Sandy did and come in from the southeast, or create a big wind event in inland areas. That is not something that we want to see, and hopefully we will not see it. And let's yes, thank you, Sean K. It was pretty cool. What is the chance of a midsummer super heat wave by PlayStation Boss? Okay. I'm not big on the long range. Okay, that's just me. I don't have, I've always had a really tough time getting my head around that. I've said that many times on these live streams. So I really don't know. One thing I will say is the persistence of rain throughout the Mid-Atlantic and South Atlantic states with this pattern. If we have that through a good part of June, where the ground is exceptionally wet, if we wind up eventually getting into some kind of hot weather pattern, and I'm sure at some point in the summer we will, we always do, it might perhaps be tempered by the fact that we are having a rainy mid to late spring season here. So, I mean, that's really all I can say. Your patterns can change on a dime for one reason or another. We're kind of El Nino neutral and La Nina neutral at the moment. So, it's really a question that I can't answer. And I would say that most people, even that have their heads around the long range, would have a difficult time coming to grips with trying to figure out, is there going to be, a super heat high that's going to develop across the United States? I just kind of like to let weather patterns play themselves out and then follow them along. It makes it a lot easier to forecast that way. And certainly when we get into the short range, if you can recognize the longer term patterns, you can use them to your advantage in trying to come up with a good forecast every day, so that you see what the trend is, what the trends have been, and you kind of follow them along. And Jason Cioffi, is not going to happen if the northern jet resembles what we've had. Well, you are correct, Jason. If you wind up with a persistent northern jet that drops the westerlies down into the mid-Atlantic states, that would not be conducive to tropical systems moving up the East Coast. So you're going to have some kind of a change in that. You're going to need that jet to pull up northward. But that is a longer-term, issue. In other words, that's a problem that we deal with. And Jason, you're aware of this, but for everybody else, that is a problem that we deal with when we get there, okay, and not now when we're sitting here in the month of May. How can you tell based on computer models if the next day is partly cloudy versus mostly sunny conditions in a given location? Well, I mean, you look at what models react on whatever small little systems that are running around, and you take a look at the flow and you see what's happening. You look at your satellite pictures, you look at your radars, and you try to come out with the best forecast you can with regards to making those day-to-day decisions. Short-range models are usually pretty good in predicting sky conditions. They're not perfect, but you combine that with what is actually going on in terms of your surface observations, your satellite, your radar, etc., and you come up with your forecast. Was there any damage, Raymond, when I did my live stream last night from Jersey City? No, not by my way. The thunderstorms were starting to weaken by the time they moved into my neck of the woods. I was just west of New York City. The skies were incredible. They were incredibly turbulent and certainly signaling that somebody was getting clobbered someplace. But by the time the storms reached my area, we did have some gusty winds, but they weren't crazy. And we had some heavy downpours, but I've seen far worse than what I experienced last Tuesday where I was, which again was in Jersey City on last Tuesday. So I kind of, I missed out on the, sitting in front of the screen with all the maps in front of me and being able to do the live stream as those thunderstorms were rolling through. But, at least by my way, it wasn't nearly as bad as what they had in the Hudson Valley. And of course, on Long Island, the marine layer always helps to take those thunderstorms and basically stabilizing the atmosphere and causing those thunderstorms to weaken. That plays out a lot in the spring and in the very early part of the summer until the ocean water temperatures warm up at least into the upper 60s. We're not there yet, so that marine influence is always going to be there. Okay, folks, 33 minutes tonight. That's a pretty good live stream that we did. Just want to mention again, you can support my channel by using the Amazon link. If you shop on Amazon and you use my link, that's a great way for you to get your stuff. And Amazon sends me back a little bit of pocket change for the sales lead. Doesn't cost you a dime. We're a participant in the Amazon Services Associates program, which is designed to help channels like mine earn fees from Amazon by linking to Amazon. So I just wanted to kind of put that little disclaimer out there. I really appreciate it. William F., whatever you go on there, if you go in the search box, whatever if you're purchasing something, Amazon, will give me something back. And yes, that's a great way to support my channel. You don't have to buy what's on the screen there. You can just, if you go in there, there's a search box on the bottom. If you do your searching from there, it'll take you to whatever you're interested in. And yes, that does help support my channel, and I appreciate it very much. Thank you. And thanks for everybody for being here. We will be on a normal schedule this week. I don't foresee any issues, so that means, well, I do foresee one issue tomorrow because of some schedule changes for Joe Rayo. So what I may do is do the Joe and Joe weather show, which we do on my Facebook page, meteorologist Joe Cioffi. maybe we'll do that at 6 o'clock tomorrow night, and I'll move the YouTube live stream to either 7 or probably 8 o'clock Eastern time. So just look on my YouTube channel. I'll schedule the time during the day tomorrow once I speak to Joe and see what he wants to do, and this way you won't miss it. Okay, but the rest of the week, Tuesday through Friday, I'm envisioning, barring any kind of last-minute changes, the regular 6 o'clock live stream on YouTube and the regular 9:15 Joe Cioffi show, the Joe and Joe Weather Show, 9:15 on my Facebook page, meteorologist Joe Cioffi, or on Joe Rayo's page, Joe Rayo Weather. Have a great week ahead, folks. We will see you tomorrow.